Hey everybody, welcome back to a very special 50th episode of the Shed Organics Show. And today we are going through the best bits of the last 49 episodes. And it's crazy just going through all of these episodes, picking out some of these clips to put together for this episode made me really realize how much 50 conversations is, or 49 conversations, and how many different people, amazing people from all sorts of areas and walks of life, I've managed to have on this podcast, and it's just made me feel really grateful for the types of people that I've got to speak to and pick their brains and hear their experiences. Another thing I'm super grateful is for you listeners, listening every single episode and sharing your insights, your stories, what you've loved. It's been really fun. I didn't realize the impact that this show might have in such an early stage in just 1 year of operating. So that's it's given me a lot of motivation to take into next year. But with these clips, look, how did I pick 10 clips? That's crazy. How could I have picked out 10 best bits from the last 49 episodes? And it came from a couple of different things. One is that this part of the conversation, or either the conversation in full, really sat with me at the right time. It's often sometimes when you really need a certain conversation, or you're just in that right part of your life to receive that information in the right way, brought to you by that person in that right time. That's probably one of the motivating factors for some of these clips. Another motivating factor is you guys, you listeners. I can see on the stats how each episode is listened to, which particular parts of the conversations you found interesting, and that was a good guide as well to pick out some of the audience-based top 10 as well. So there's been a few different criteria, both my favorites, your favorites in terms of the stats and things like this, and then some that are just literally good parts of the conversation that need to be repeated. So, look, let's dive into the first part, the first clip, and we have to go all the way back to episode 2. This was actually recorded before the start of this year, so it was recorded at the end of 2024, getting ready for the start of the podcast. This is Tilly from Tilly's Garden, and in this particular clip, Tilly is sharing how much of her grocery bill she saves on her 600 square meter block. Now, it's a lot less than that growing space, which I think we go into in the clip, but hearing the impact that that makes and the type of satisfaction that Tilly gets from that was really, really inspiring. And I think it's such an important clip to highlight again, to showcase what can be done in a suburban block. So first up, this is episode 2 from Tilly's Garden, talking about all things money saving in the garden.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like when
Yeah.
they've just bought a house or they're just starting gardening, being able to say, hey, for $0 or as close to $0 as possible, like so far we spent $29 on the council's compost bin. So it was like
Yeah,
$29 for a
because you
compost
can
bin.
get the
But
rebate, can't you? Obviously, with all the money back that they give you.
yeah, so
That is a
Redlands
great one.
introduced that. Mm.
Yeah,
And so that's like all we've spent so far. And then you guys, we got the green manure sample, which has
perfect.
done superbly. Like,
Awesome.
yeah. So we're hoping with that garden to showcase for people just starting out, but also there's definitely like since I started family, like I've definitely become probably more community conscious now than I was prior to having my child.
Yes.
And I've like noticed, particularly on like the Facebook like groups and stuff and the mums groups, is particularly post 2020, everyone's like, oh, how can we make groceries cheaper? How can we like we can't afford to feed our kids this week. Like we're
Yeah.
struggling. And I'm like, okay, I know in my that last month, if I was to have bought the same things that I ate from my garden from Woolies or Coles, so I added it up with all our like what we harvested, it was $1,600.
Wow.
The month before that was 1,400, and then in June it was 1,250, and then in May, May was like 1,800.
Whoa. And that's all being produced from your garden.
Yeah, that's just eating. That's not what's going to the chickens or what's
Yeah.
going in the compost as chop and drop.
That's amazing. And like you're absolutely right
Just
because lately,
yeah. So
like yeah, lately all of these groceries are just continuing to go up and up and up and up. And in the shops we literally
yeah.
have food that doesn't taste good. It's
And I
not
mean,
nutritionally dense
what choice do we have? We need to eat. Like
and
we gotta have
as you say,
food.
you want to feed your kids and you want to feed your kids
Hmm.
good stuff, and we want to educate them on the importance, as you were when you were a kid, of good
And of
food
healthy
and
food
where
too.
it comes from. So yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So then you've
Yeah.
started this on like TikTok and YouTube.
Yep.
Obviously, I've been watching what you do. It's very, very cool. So you're just showing ways of being able to do these
Be
kind of
sustainable.
yeah, and these community
And
based activities or like these
mhm.
small scale or like the closed loop systems that
Yeah.
help you save money and really
Exactly.
can
And I feel like
happen.
showcasing the like to get people into it by showcasing the fact that, hey, this has real dollar value. The fact that I only spent 12 hours in my garden last month and I saved myself $1,400.
Yeah,
Like that's
wild.
over $100 an hour
Yeah.
that, is like,
On a
hey,
600 square block, like not well, 200
yeah.
and whatever growing space. It's
Yep.
really not a huge amount of space like to produce that level of
Mm.
groceries.
Yeah, like you wouldn't think so, but when you move away from that ideology of like, oh, I'll have like a row of 12 lettuces that I plant on July 1st and 14 carrots, and you start going, I'm going to put one lettuce here, and then next to that lettuce, I'll surround it by radishes that'll be ready to pick in 6 weeks. And then once those radishes are ready, the lettuce will be bigger. And I harvest the leaves from the edges rather than the whole plant. I can extend the
Yes.
value of crop. And then, next to that lettuce as it comes through, I'm going to put like a cherry tomato that'll get shaded in the beginning while it's like weaker and the lettuce will grow through. Then I'll chop and drop it to feed the tomato. Then the tomato will help like provide climbing work for peas. And I can do all that in a square foot.
Yeah, exactly. That's
So,
essentially you're providing as well, like what you're gonna eat, not
mm,
necessarily like a huge surplus of one thing where you have to go and then store it for a year or whatever. I
yeah.
mean, that's still
So you
okay,
totally
but
haven't seen my freezer full of tomatoes. Um,
and there we have it. How good was that? Tilly sharing how much amazing produce she can create in such a small space in suburbia. So I hope that motivated you to see what else you can be growing for your family in your garden. Clip two, we're going to be moving on to a very special friend of mine and the show, Leonie Shanahan. I met Leonie at the Queensland Garden Show this year, really developed a nice connection with her, and just was so inspired by her story. And this clip I really enjoyed because it's talking about the impact of school gardens or the education that comes around gardening and growing produce for ourselves, having healthy food, healthy soils, blah, 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 all the things that you know that I love taught to people or kids at a young age and integrated into the normal system of schooling. There's so many different ways of schooling these days, but at least having some connection to land, to food, to growing, it's so important. So it was really cool to be able to hear Leonie's story about creating these school gardens. So you'll hear it for yourself. Here it is, episode 40 with Leonie Shanahan.
Anyway, so I'm having morning tea with my youngest daughter and her little friends, all these little 6-year-olds,
Sweet.
and they open their lunch boxes, and I'm like,
No.
oh my God, like where is the nutrition in these lunch boxes? Like
Hmm.
some might have had fruit, but there'd be lots of color. We know
Hmm.
about the rainbow diet. Yeah, lots of color, but it's all artificial
Yes.
in like in plastic.
In
So a bit of
packets.
microplastics to add to that as well.
Hmm.
I'm like, hey, I didn't want my kids to look like freaks with all their healthy food. It's like, where is the nutrition for these children to have their birthright of being healthy and their true potential to be unleashed because they're healthy? And, where's it going to be their brain capacity and, all those different umbrellas that came under health?
Hmm.
I thought, okay, you have studied permaculture, organics, horticulture. how about you do something about it? Do something with it. Because I started studying after um and this happens to a lot of women. They have their first baby and then go, actually, where am I heading with my life?
Hmm.
And that was one of those changes. I wanted to do something that made a difference. So I decided to study horticulture, thinking that I'd go and work in Cambodia.
Oh,
And
wow.
and and because they had that generation that was wiped out of all the
Hmm.
farmers. So I
Yes.
thought, oh, I'll go over and I'll teach them. That was the thought. I've never even got there. But and I was the longest part-time horticulture student they ever had. Could only do one or two subjects at once. So going back to realizing that, okay, stop complaining and do something about it. So I went in, so that's about 2004, 2005.
Hmm.
So I went and looked at the current models that were successful. So I went down to Melbourne and looked at cultivating community. They were running good programs down there. And I went to Northey Street City Farm in Brisbane
Hmm.
and I went and spent the day with them visiting schools. And then I came home and I wrote my own 12-month program.
Wow.
And then, and everything was to be about empowering them, not me just telling them what to do.
Right.
So, uh, and then, so obviously the universe went, love that idea. I'm gonna make sure it works. So I'd gone to this community, I don't know what it was now. But I remember saying in this group, oh, I want to start this school garden program. And this woman across the other side just puts her hand out and said, our school needs that. We'll make it happen. And
Oh,
that was at
great.
Palmwood State School. And they were amazing. Like we went to see the principal. She was, yep, we'll make it happen. We didn't get funding, but the school so believed in it. They said, no, we'll make it happen. And we just combed the shops, the local. It's a little town. It's grown a lot these days, but and businesses were fantastic in donating. And so
Wonderful.
anyway, so I went into this school and taught several classes. At that stage, I was focusing on year five and sixes, and I taught them about permaculture and
Cool.
design. And the idea was they came up with their own design because it's their school. It's not my school. It's
Hmm.
their school.
Yeah.
So, and of course, if I remember the first time I got up in front of them and I'm suddenly like, oh, oh, you've got 30 designs in front of you, and that's just one class. How are you going to do this? Anyway,
Yeah.
well, thankfully, my mind went very quickly, break them into groups, work out the main thing they liked. And so at the end of the day, with a little bit of persuasion and me coming up with the final design, every person in that school or the classes I had felt like it was their design.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that they had ownership. So that was the first important thing. And then one of the most important days that the kids will always remember, there was two, there's that and there's Harvest Day, was the setup day
Yeah.
where and it's a shame they didn't record it on TV because they set up things they did. Ours was much better and was more real. Um, so all the students came together and we asked parents to come and help. And
That's
that first
amazing.
school, being the first one's more memorable because it's similar.
Yeah.
Um, we had 79
Wow.
people turn up to help.
That's
And
amazing.
thank and thankfully I had the forethought to write up all the different steps on butcher's paper and have like step one, step two, step three, because we were doing herb spirals, we were doing no-dig gardens.
Wow.
I'd put the shape out earlier in the day, so the shape was there. We had so many activities going at once, and so they'd come up and say, "Oh, we've just done this," and I go, "That group's just done what you're up to. Go and speak." And I was just doing this all day. Go and speak to them. Go and speak to that one. Do that. Do that. There's that list, and at the day it was done.
Beautiful. Thank you so much again to Leonie. The rest of that conversation was amazing as well. So I highly encourage you to go and check out that. As with all of these clips, these episodes, if you enjoyed the clip, please go and check out the episode in full. All of those links will be in the description below for the full episodes. So next clip, we're moving on to the wonderful Michael Wardle from Savor Soil Permaculture. Michael has such an extensive wealth of knowledge in this area, and being able to read sites for what they're telling us, where they're moving, and the types of things that we might be able to achieve within that site that are pretty practical in terms of working with the land, with the signposting of the weeds and things like this. So Michael talks us through in this instance how he works with clients to understand their needs and what can actually be done within the site and balancing those two, but also expanding that further into our cities and our current way of life and how we could possibly fix some of our food issues in terms of bringing it more local, having some swaps, being able to understand that you don't actually have to grow it all yourself. We can share with our neighbors and share around and bring that local feeling into those tighter areas. So Michael dives right into a few of those things. And again, what a wealth of knowledge. What a beautiful conversation. So here is Michael Wardle from Savor Soil Permaculture.
Things. And so permaculture doesn't just cover with regards to growing a food. It also looks at social systems and as well as healing and production and recreation and social as well as environmental and education. So we're looking at a holistic approach rather than just one particular thing. Identify if it's an urban environment, I'd really focus in on how much time do they have available.
Mm,
Not what they want to grow, how much time have they got available. Because it's easy to go, like you said, it's easy to go hard. You plant everything out really fast, and I want to do this, and then before you know it, you're spending all your time in your garden. And you've got no time for anything else because you've planted too much, or you've done too much, or whatever else. And
hmm
there's other ways to do it as well. I mean, I teach a course. It's over 3 days, and it's pretty intensive with regards to growing food. And one of the things we talk about is, how much time have you got available, but also understand you don't have to do it all yourself.
Yes. Mm,
I typically there's usually about 20 to 26 people in a room. And so you're looking at, well, so look at that. We've got 20. And it's like, well, if everyone here grew five different things, that's 100 different things that are available.
yeah.
Rather than focus on trying to grow it all, you grow tomatoes really, really well. I grow cabbages really, really well.
Yeah. But trade and supply
Yeah,
each
let's
other.
get let's get let's get a little bit of a crop swap in space rather than. But the thing is that with some of those crop swaps that I visited as well, and this is not a critique in any way, but everyone's growing silver beets, so all the silver beets ready at the same time. So everyone comes with silver beet, or everyone comes with, or everyone comes with. It's like diversify your crops.
Yes,
So that
yes.
way, when you come, there is definite trade and there's definite that social atmosphere. So you're not just designing the ecological because you're with regards to what you're growing in the ground and the food sources, but you're also instantly designing the social into it as well,
Yeah, I really
which is
like
that
that.
human connection.
Yes, I think that's so important, and especially for our built-up cities and communities where we are like, you barely know your neighbors in some of these instances, which is really sad.
Mm,
How do you, just a question on that, how do you see that sort of thing coming into our lives? Because I, like you, try and promote that type of thing, like growing, sharing, swapping, all of that type of thing. And we've
mm.
seen it work for millennia, like it used to work like that. How how do you see that working in our cities, and what sort of problems do you reckon we face?
I think like it can work, but it takes work.
Mm,
And that's the thing. And usually it's driven by, for the minute anyway, in a lot of areas, it's driven by one or two, maybe three people or a small committed group of individuals to make it happen. But it actually takes a community to make it work. So,
yeah.
having it fun and interactive, but also there's the chance on the other side of the coin, there's the chance of burnout because
Yes.
those people that, and I've seen it time again, I've had a lot of friends who've burned out doing that. Because it was really active and involved, and the moment they went, listen, I can't do this anymore. I need a break.
Yeah.
Then next thing you know, it's all gone.
The whole
And
thing falls
so
apart. Mm,
yeah, but also it's easy. There's a level of convenience in just popping into the shop. So that's sort of the other side of the coin that we're dealing with. But the current cost of living crisis that we're dealing with, prices have gone up 30-40% on a lot of things. And people can't afford. And it's like, you know what? You can do this at home very simply. And it doesn't take a lot. And you don't have to, and just saying to people, you don't have to grow it all. And all of a sudden you
yeah.
just see relief on their face because they feel they've got to do it all. It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
All right. But let's focus on what is of value to you and your family, whether it be monetary value or health or whatever else. And then let's grow that so
hmm
you can support yourself with that and start there. And then maybe slowly but surely add little bit by little bit. And understanding the limits of the site, because suburban areas, a lot of suburban blocks are anywhere between 300 and 800 squares now, and you can do stuff, but you can't do it all.
Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah, you
can't.
can't plant every tree. You can't.
You're
Yeah, there's a
right.
lot you
And
can do,
if
a
it
lot you
knocks
can't do.
exactly, and if it knocks a little bit off your grocery bill or something, and you can then provide little extras to your neighbors or something and to your family, then that helps everybody. And then more people get excited by it because they can do it. It's only a small manageable amount and they can work this the way up with it. Um,
Yeah,
there's
just
a
well, even here, I've got a little bit, I've got 3 meters of balcony garden. I'm in a rental. I've got a bioponics use downstairs, and there was an old garden bed that I've converted into a herb garden. That's producing everything I need.
yeah, awesome.
You don't need a lot of space to do this stuff. It's a bit of an illusion that we need to have acres and acres and acres to do it. It's just about being strategic.
And he's absolutely right because I always thought that you needed acres and acres myself. I'd always dreamed of acres of farmland and trying to grow absolutely everything myself. I think maybe that's just part of everybody wants to do everything themselves. But, we don't have to. The reality is we can share and we can cooperate. And I really liked that clip. So go and check that out. That was episode 25. Now, the next clip, we are going again all the way back to episode 6. This was a very fan favorite episode, and I'm not surprised because the gentleman involved, Mr. Phil Dudman, is an absolute fan favorite wherever he appears. So, fan favorite or not, this clip was really worthwhile bringing back. So, in this clip, Phil talks about not only his feeling about community and the impact of doing something in your community, in your street, starting a bit of a trend or trying to be more interactive with your neighbors in your community. But also how his boys, the 2 boys that he has in his family, how he managed to try and get them into gardening or just get them involved with gardening early on, and how that may have impacted them later on in life, and whether that is possible to do as a gardening fanatic. I'm a gardening fanatic myself, and trying to inspire your children without killing that motivation is just so difficult. So it was a really interesting point of view from Phil, and yeah, we just had to include this clip. So here it is, episode 6 with the incredible Phil Dudman.
Well, it's interesting. One simple thing that most gardeners would know is that when you're creating a beautiful front garden in particular, and you're working out in that garden, most people who will walk past will stop and have a look, and they'll say hello, and they'll engage with you, and they'll comment on how beautiful your garden's looking. It's an expression of yourself. You're doing your own thing out there, and that feels good. But you strike up a conversation, and sometimes those people will be gardeners. Other times they won't, but they're still drawn to it. So just by having that interaction with someone wandering past who's taken an interest in your garden is a great way to connect with the community, but you may be inspiring somebody to do the same thing. It's interesting. When I first bought my house here in Lismore, one of the things I did was to plant up the footpath, the verge, and create something. It's like an extension of my garden,
Yeah.
and I've filled that area out. I've kept in mind that people have got to walk through there. They've got to be able to, back their cars up and do all that. So the way I've planted it and planned it is that, those things aren't going to be an issue.
Yeah.
But it didn't take long before someone moved in down the road and did the same thing. And now further up the street, there are 2 adjoining houses up there where people have moved in, and they're talking to me about doing the same thing. So it's not going to be long before our whole street is going to be full of verge gardens. And then the ones that don't have it, that have just got the grass, they're going to stand out. It's not going to be the verge gardens that stand out anymore. It's going to be the grass that stands out. And it looks so much better. It feels so much better. We're surrounding ourselves with plants. The birds love it. The insects love it. And people passing by love it as well. And certainly on a hot day, the ones who are walking along the footpath are much preferred. They much prefer going through our little shady
Yes.
part of the footpath than the one next to it. It's just like out in the blaring sun.
Yeah, barren.
So, it cools your environment and it looks far better. But I think you asked something about, I'm trying to remember your question. I've gone off on a rave there, but
no, I absolutely
the
love it
importance
because
of
it's really
connection
cool.
with community. Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, I think it's such a big part of being a gardener. And as I get older as a gardener, I realize how important it is to just keep talking to people about what you do and what you love, and they respond. And there's a fair bit you learn about gardening that you can share as you get older, and even as a new gardener. And I think if you meet someone who's curious, offer to help them. Offer to help them with some advice on what to plant and how to do it. I mean, we've all done a little bit and we've learnt things on how to make it easier. Share that knowledge and get people started. People have a lot of setbacks in gardening, and it can actually turn them off and they never want to do it again. So help them get through those moments so that they can break through and have more successes. I've got two boys, and they're very close together in age. And I was in my late 20s when I had my kids, and my head was just in the garden, straight into gardening. So, from a young age, I had them out there in the patch, hanging out with me, working amongst the plants, harvesting, connecting with the plants, planting, doing things together, and just enjoying that time together. It was more about the time together, but we're doing something that Dad loves and he's passionate about. Just as they grew up, we're bringing so much of this food to the table. Fresh broccoli every night, cauliflowers, carrots, potatoes, and it was hard for me with my enthusiasm not to sit at the end of the table and give them a sermon about, look at this amazing food here, kids. It's from our garden. But that's all they knew. And of course, they got sick of hearing me raving on about that. So I had to back off a little bit. Have they become gardeners? They're hitting 30 now, my kids. So, they have often said to me, like, now that I'm an adult, I realize how good it was to have such great food coming from the garden, and they appreciated that. Awesome. They both dabbled in gardening, but they haven't picked it up yet. Wow. But the seeds have been planted. One thing that has come out of that is they've got an appreciation for good eating and eating fresh and eating organic. They seek out good food, and they've had enough experience with their mates growing up to realize how bad food can be.
Yeah.
And how trashy it can be and how processed it can be. So they both focus on, starting with good food.
Amazing. Thank you, Phil. Again, I highly encourage you to go and check out the episode in full. Next clip, we are moving on to episode 9, a few episodes later. This one was with Rachel, Life a Little Greener on Instagram. She works well with Raven Place Farm. And this clip was all about community collaboration. And I loved this clip because I was just so inspired by not only the area where Rachel is, but the community feel that they have, the way that they reuse and repurpose so many different things. Waste is not waste for everyone. It can be gold for somebody else, and turning that into a product and being able to sell that and being able to keep everything in-house in these closed loop systems. I think it was done super brilliantly, and it's a really nice way to be able to highlight exactly what can be done in this instance. So let me hand it over. Here is Rachel from episode 9.
So we've got worm farms and composting sites on situ. I do a lot of chopping and dropping as well. So just putting it straight back into the soil, especially with the cut flowers and stuff. If I'm prepping veggies for sale, if it's like leeks and stuff I was harvesting today, I just literally strip them and drop it right there, put the roots back in and just kind of leave it. Again, minimizing effort, like the less that I can do. The whole plan long term with the farm is absorbing external waste streams. And so having conversations with local restaurants to allow us to kind of create more compost on site, which will then reduce the cost of the food for the end consumer. We do we've got some really cool other closed loop systems within the cafe as well. So generally we'll absorb like the coffee grind and use them in the farm, but they've just started they cook in tallow. And so now they're using the tallow that they cook with, they're giving it the tallow that they cook with, the coffee grinds, then they're giving it to a local soap maker, and the soap maker is making a soap, which is like an exfoliating soap for gardeners, and then that's coming back into the system that we can sell as a product.
That's
And
insane. That's so
I know
cool.
it's I'm like, I use it all the time. It's such a delicious soap. And again, it's not us doing it. It's working with the community and utilizing their skills to close those systems. We've just I grow loofah here as well. So we're using that to put in the scrubs to make body scrubs. And so it's just
wow,
closing all the systems that we can. Chicken manure we use on site. We get wood chip from local arborists as well. So I've got some really good connections. And so they'll drop loads of massive big piles of wood chip off for me. And yeah.
That's amazing. I like everything that you're saying just screams collaboration. And I think that's something that's so missing in a lot of our societies, mainly, I guess, our built-up cities and more tightly close neighborhoods and things like this, where everyone's on small blocks and things like this. Do you find that the Northern Rivers, obviously, I mean, the times that I've been there, it's such a gorgeous, gorgeous part of the world. Do you find that that mindset is kind of, I guess, a local mindset that everyone sort of shares and wants to protect that area?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely, there's a lot of community and collaboration in the area, especially after the floods, and we kind of had to stand up for ourselves really, because this is all we had. And so we kind of really all came together. And I find that Murwillumbah, like all of the region, because I kind of travel around the Northern Rivers quite a lot, it's that really beautiful kind of connected, it's like a connection between country, like that real country vibe of like everyone, you mates with everyone. And then just like a community driven, connected, nature based area.
Yeah, that's wonderful because I find that, you know, when populations reach a certain point, or even for example, like anyone living in sort of suburbia, you're kind of, you barely know your neighbors really. And like when you live in a community that's more kind of, I guess, country, it's you know the person down on that property, and you might have known the person that lived there before, and you might, you know, they came from this generation, and you know what they do, and they look after this, and they'll help you with that, and there's all this kind of looking out for each other.
I think it starts with a conversation. So like just going up and like talking to your neighbors, going over and having a conversation saying, hey guys, this is what I want to start doing. Because there are some amazing people doing some amazing things like Tilly. I did listen to the potty. And I think, is it the worm, she's not very active on Insta. She does the same thing, she composts everyone. She's got massive big worm farms, and she composts everyone food waste, same as what Tilly was doing, right? And then it's kind of bringing those people back together, because right now we're in this really disjointed community, like we're in suburbia. Like I used to live in Hong Kong, so I get it. Like it was like high rises, like thousands of people in really tall buildings, and you're in your cube, that was it. And so it's all about like reconnecting with people and reconnecting with nature and opening up those conversations. And how can you utilize social media to kind of be a tool to help you connect, rather than being something that disconnects people. And so social media groups. I was trying to set up a bartering system day in Murwillumbah, but I just got too busy. But like, not just like a produce sharing day, but also a skills sharing day. So people could bring not just food, like stepping away, because some people don't have the time or the capacity to grow food, but maybe they can teach you how to knit, or they can teach you how to sew, or woodworking or something. So having this like community days on a regular basis where everyone can come together and share everything, knowledge and experience and skills.
Thank you, Rachel. What cool clip. I'm sure you're inspired by that because, you know, the last couple of clips talking about community and just being involved with your neighbors and your community and swaps and things. It's just when you realize that, you might have excess of something someone else needs and vice versa, whether it be knowledge or whether it be, tangible things like groceries, it's such a heartwarming and incredibly connective way of working with each other to supply each other's needs. And then when you realize that, you can get all of this stuff for basically a lot less than we're paying normally, everyone gets to live a little bit better. Which actually leads me on to our next clip. We have the wonderful Tianda from UForage joining us on this episode, and she's talking all about the idea that sparked her amazing app, UForage, and including roadside stalls and homegrown trades and swaps and things like this into a tangible app that someone can then go and find when they need that produce, find what's around them, and also be able to put yourself out there and say, hey, look, I've got more of this. So I loved this story. I thought it was really inspiring. So this clip made it into the best bits. And here is the wonderful Tianda from UForage on episode 15.
I remember really clearly meeting some new mum friends and being invited over to this mum's house who I'd never been there before. And it's like, yeah, come bring the kids. They can swim in the pool. We can sit and relax and have some snacks and bring a plate. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this sounds good. And off I went with my little, I don't even remember what I took, but something, that was crunchy or organic, or
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to, that's where I am at. And that's the kind of people I wanted to surround myself with. And we sat down at this table and I just picked up this strawberry that was on there and I bit into it. And it was the most incredible strawberry. I've told this story. I feel like really silly going over it, but it
No.
was insane. Like, it was the first time, when you taste something from the garden, you've only ever had it from the shops, and then you taste something from the garden and it's just like, wow, it was that
Yes.
kind of moment. And I said to her, my God, where did you get these? It's amazing. And then she told me about a roadside stall that was about another 1.5 kilometers down the. So I found this stall 1.2 k's down the road. Never have I been down that road. Never would I have had any other reason to go down that road aside from meeting that mum, having that encounter with the strawberries. And that roadside stall took me from, I have 4 kids, and I want to buy organic food. But for me, even going to the markets was so expensive and it wasn't attainable for me. And then all of a sudden I'm introduced to this roadside stall and I go and check it out and it is loaded. I can do, I reckon 65 to 75% of my fresh fruit and veg from this roadside stall.
Wow.
And the mum that introduced me starts telling me, oh yeah, I know, I've got to know the people. I've been shopping at this store for years. And she tells me about their farming practices. And over time I meet them too. And I speak to them and I hear from them. And now I'm able to get organic. It's not certified, of course, but I know from what the farmer has told me, the practices are that it's spray free. And it's a fraction of the cost of what I would have been paying if I was going to the supermarket to get organic food or going to the farmer's market to get organic food. And so that was the first wow moment for me. I know that there's more roadside stalls around. Just where are they? How do you find them? Because if I hadn't met that mum, I would never have gone to, literally, there's no reason for me to go that direction. I would never have gone there. It's only a couple of Ks out of my way.
Wow.
And so that kind of thought process started the cogs turning, I suppose. And then further down the track, the Valentino's family, as I mentioned before, they're Italian. I remember distinctly visiting them in Canberra. It was Christmas or something. And it's hard to explain. If you have Italian relatives, anyone listening to this, you'll fully understand. They make their passata and the salami and all that traditional practices. They're making all this beautiful food and even having their own gardens. And they're literally passing the same stuff from one person to the other. Oh, I bought you beans. Thank you. I already have just passing the same stuff around and around and around and around to each other. And I was just as an Aussie, I would kill for passata.
Yeah.
That was the first and I started talking to Valentino about that and just being do you know how many people would just love the opportunity to share in that? And then we started talking. His mum does markets, but she doesn't sell those sorts of things in markets. She makes muesli and biscuits and all kind of little things like that. But the fact through COVID, she wasn't able to do that.
Mm.
So we started having these conversations. Well, how could it be that they could share that, even if they're not a stall holder at a market, or if they were, but then something like this happens and they can't get to the market? There's nothing in place to sort of offer that opportunity for people. Like, I bake sourdough bread, and
Yeah.
I had mums at the school like ordering sourdough bread. And I knew that if it was open to a wider community, I could have served more people. But it was just that balance. Do I want to take it there or not? Even if I did, how would I do that? I'm probably going to be in community groups on Facebook or something, just plugging away every week. There's no thing to find your local food. And that's what really started the idea going.
Thank you, Tianda. What an inspiring conversation. I think the whole story and the movement with You Forage is really heartwarming and inspiring, especially with what they've been through. So I had to include that one. I think it's such a brilliant idea, and we need more people jumping on that app to utilize it as much as possible. So thank you, Tianda. That was episode 15. The next clip is from probably my favorite conversation of the entire year. And it's been no secret, if you've been listening to the show, that I've been speaking about this man constantly. Just the way that he's able to phrase things, to put his ideas into words, and just his thinking is so, I guess, different to what you might be used to hearing, but it's so poignant and perfect in terms of the way that I receive the information. So I really loved this conversation. It stuck with me so much. So here is Eric Van Zulikom. I hope I'm saying that right, Eric, because that's such a butcher of your last name, from United Natures. And this conversation, we're talking about plenty of different things, but understanding how much time you have in terms of how much you're willing to put into the garden, into a space, but so much more and so much depth around that. So I'll just let the conversation speak for itself. I'll let this clip stand alone. Here is Eric, and this is episode 23.
It's important to acknowledge that your expectations should suit your lifestyle. And your lifestyle changes, therefore you need flexibility. And sometimes we engage in things wanting a certain outcome and then realize that it was actually the process of engaging that was what we needed, not necessarily the thing. For some people, gardening is a thing, and they turn to it because it feels wholesome. They get good vibes from it. They know they can be productive. They're working with a system they know that they can get a response from. It's not a dead tile. You've got to paint the tile. If you leave the tile in the garage, it's just going to collect dust. But if you plant a seed, it's going to do stuff while you're engaged elsewhere. And you come back and you go, oh, that was my mastery. Check it out. Look at my chilies. And then you have a child, and then you can go very esoteric with this, but I'm a very pragmatic, scientifically driven person. I'm very spiritual because I understand there's so much out there that I just can't fathom. So I've got this big box of, I don't understand, it's too big for me, but I respect it and it's there. And my son is my teacher. He wasn't born with all the degrees I've got and with the life experience that I can see, but he's born without the BS that I've accumulated. So he doesn't have these onion layers of expectation and hurt and learning and gain and wonder and all of these things, obligation, etc. He sees it and he says it. And I go, oh, you've got to laugh as a parent because your kids are going to show the skeletons in the closet very quickly. So you learn how to water off a duck's back. You learn to sit and watch and learn. And just like I said, that skill of watching, not looking, but seeing, not just talking, but learning how to imbue your words with deep meaning and value, takes quietness, and it takes humility, and it takes understanding that they were probably all built on losses and figuring things out. And that's cool. But your children will teach you because they will mirror all of your vulnerabilities, and your garden will throw back in your face all your expectations because it will say, I won't be caged by you. You've got a hedge trim and you want square hedges. That's cool. Trim me and turn your back on me. And I've got my own agenda. And I don't speak your language. I don't have your expectations and your beliefs. I'm going to set seed and I'm going to send roots down. I'm going to grow however my genetics wants me to, which way the sun angle is and all of that. So if you learn the currency or the language of the things you're working with, then you're 3/4 of the way there.
Mm.
The next thing that really struck me was, it's that old saying, perfection doesn't exist. It recreates itself and will totally mess you up. It's progress.
Yes.
Perfection is like the end of the rainbow perfection.
Mm.
It doesn't work like that. The more effort you put in does not create perfection. And the cleaner your edges and your lines and the better integrated and smarter you are, the more you learn,
Yeah.
the less you'll ever know. So true wisdom isn't gaining knowledge. It's actually letting go of knowledge and realizing I humble myself, but I acknowledge that I'm getting very clever, but I've got to watch what I'm doing because it comes with responsibilities and it changes them. And so the way I survived parenting and expectation and being efficient and gardening was the progress rather than perfection. And my wife taught me that because I've been wanting to do workshops and teach and share what we're doing here at our homestead, United Natures. And I've been holding myself back and procrastinating. She said, just do it. And I said, what are you talking about? I've got a level of expectation and perfection. I've got all this experience. And she set up her macrame business and she just does it. And it's amazing how she's growing. And she said, Eric, people don't want to see the end product. They want to see the guts of how it works. They want to see your wicking bed not made yet. They want to see your compost halfway through. They want to see your veggie patch straight after harvesting. They want to see you mulching the bare soil, because that's where the learning is. It's not this veneer of completedness, because that's not reality.
Yes.
And it's this huge cycle. It's quite wonderful. And nature will do that because you will have an idea of what you want with your garden, but what your garden is never a finished product, because technically your finished product should be in your belly.
Yeah.
It's still not in the soil. That's progress.
What a beautiful sentiment. Thank you, Eric. The key takeaway from that conversation is progress over perfection. And I just think it was encapsulated so well in his experience there and his story. So thank you so much to Eric. That was such a poignant thing to share. And I'm so glad we got to highlight that again in the best bits. Now, moving right along, we've got another fan favorite with Keith Edwards at episode 46. This was a recent episode. And in this clip, Keith is talking about the story of his grandchildren enjoying the garden and what that means to him and what that sort of legacy is leaving for those kids. Having that experience of growing up and eating fresh food from the garden and being able to live that experience, that understand that, setting them up for such a brilliant life ahead to be able to do the same here. And this got so much good feedback when I put this clip out to the world, so I had to include this in the best bits. What an absolute fan favorite, as I mentioned before. Keith Edwards, here he is on episode 46.
And probably one of the most important factors that happens to me when I sit on my drawing board is I have a little person sitting on my shoulder, and her name is Edna Walling, who was Australia's greatest female landscape designer.
Beautiful. Oh, awesome.
So I studied Edna Walling, and I have lots of little things that she says to me as I'm sitting on my drawing board, looking at the brief and then coming up with a design. And one of the most important things that she says to me is this: a garden you can see all at once is not much of a garden at all.
Wow.
All right. And the reason that is so important is that if you walk out your backyard, and regardless of what size you've got, if you walk out that backyard and you can see absolutely everything that's going on in that backyard, it's not going to take you out. It's not going to say to me, come out and see what's over behind this particular space here, or come and see what's behind this garden bed. See what's over here. It doesn't take you on a journey unless you've created these particular garden rooms. Wow. And that's what I try so much to do. I've done big gardens where they've got children. So you provide spaces within those gardens that haven't got physical boundaries, but have got a pathway that wanders all the way through the garden beds, and there'll be little spaces within that garden where you can sit and contemplate. You can get away from mum, get away from dad, have a hissy fit, whatever else. So it's everything's got to have a journey.
That's such a profound thing. I relate very much to having sort of that mentor voice of various people that, I'm fortunate chatting to a bunch of people like yourself that are really, really knowledgeable. And I get these little tidbits of things that come through in the work that I do. But I really love that idea of just being invited by the garden to go and figure out what's going on and just to be taken through on that journey. Mate, your thinking is so beautiful. I just love all the nuanced ways that you're thinking about these things. A question I find myself asking a lot at the moment is like, what is top of mind for you at the moment in terms of what's interesting you moving forward in this industry? What's still exciting you? What sort of things are you diving into head first at the moment that's really fresh and exciting for you?
Well, it's not necessarily new plant varieties or anything else that's creating my interest. It is my clients that are creating the interest, because I'm getting an awful lot of young clients that now want to be involved with a garden that's edible.
Beautiful, beautiful.
But they want to be able to get their children to go out the backyard and pick beautiful, homegrown, fresh produce that's free of chemicals and nasties and all the other crap. And that is a huge passion for me. That is something that I particularly really love. I've got two grandkids that live fairly close to us. And when they arrive with their parents, they look at their mum and dad and they say to them, why don't you stay here and talk to Nan and Pop while we go and visit the garden? And they go out the backyard and they're gone. And you walk out there and they're just picking broccoli or beans or tomatoes or fruit and just consuming.
That's such a joy.
And that is the best possible thing that you can give to a child. It's not bloody money and toys and crap like that. It is an involvement with nature, seeing where food comes from, seeing that it's seasonal, seeing how much it tastes better. My grandson, one of the two grandsons, had a competition picking beautiful carrots out of the ground. And they took a whole heap home and they were used over a few days. And the oldest one looked up at his mother and while he was eating a carrot, he said, "This carrot's come from Pop's place, hasn't it? Because it doesn't taste like the stuff that you normally buy us." And that sort of thing is just brilliant.
Yes.
He's getting an understanding of just how good homegrown food is, so that hopefully will instill in him that opportunity, if he gets it, to grow his own as well.
Wow, that was just encapsulated so well. Thank you, Keith. And I know that you'll all be feeling nice and buzzed and heartwarmed from that conversation. So this is a perfect time to be bringing in a little bit more of a thoughtful clip here from Jade Miles at Black Barn Farm. This is another recent one on episode 43. In this clip, Jade is sharing how she feels that we have lost our connection to land, how we have lost this reciprocity of us and nature and thinking of ourselves as a complete oneness, not separate from nature and not with this extractive and damaging approach that we seem to take to it. So Jade really highlights that this connection is lost and how we can possibly be thinking about that in terms of our greater impact to not only ourselves, but our communities and us as a species as a whole. So it was a very thoughtful conversation. Again, came at a really important time for me to have this conversation. So thank you again to Jade. This is Jade Miles from Black Barn Farm, and this is episode 43.
Ultimately, there's a bigger piece in the puzzle that is at play that really doesn't matter how connected we are to our food system and how well we build or rebuild our connection to land. None of that matters if we haven't huddled. And so that really is where my second book came from. It's a cultural piece that basically asks us to rewrite our story away from the one of deep separation from self, deep separation from the reciprocity held by others, and deep separation that is our fundamental challenge to overcome from the ecological systems that hold us. We have built this narrative that is ultimately hurtling us towards a place of fundamental destruction and collapse inevitability, that says, as the human species, we are top dog and we don't actually have to play by the rules of mutual reciprocity. And we can extractively take what we like when we like at the price we're willing to pay without putting anything back in. And it leaves us in a place of deficit, vast deficit. So not only ecological deficit, but cultural deficit. You know, we've lost the art of sitting silently and moving out of our heads that we've so greatly celebrated for hundreds of years, because that's where success sits, surely, in our heads and our ability to, you know, create systems and order and efficiency.
Yeah.
And it leaves us void of an ability to really listen to our bodies that are co-creating stories with Mother Nature herself. Listen to the calling or the rhythm of the year that we were once so deeply connected to and had an understanding of. Listen to a landscape that actually needs us to participate with it. And that lack of reciprocity has left us with an extractive mindset, and that extractive mindset will ultimately leave us without a place to call home. And so, you know, we definitely, Blackburn Farm is a place for growing amazing food for our community, and we do it as wildly and as naturally as we possibly can. We mimic Mother Nature wherever is possible, and we never add synthetic anythings. No synthetic herbicides or fungicides or pesticides. We do lots with our hands.
Perfect.
And we, you know, we have lots and lots of practices that allow us to do that. But the greatest part of all of it is that we educate our local community to understand that that is what a healthy ecosystem actually looks like, and that's what produces healthy food and healthy medicine and opportunity to sit in the landscape quietly and breathe deeply and connect with your senses and connect with the landscape and the energy that's coming from the natural world. But ultimately, the joy for us really is that we now have a beautiful environment that we can invite people to sit in the dam or sit in the river, or lie on your back and watch the clouds, or sit in ceremonial circle in men's circles or women's circles, or you know, sacred fire circles, or whatever it might be, or create silent mandalas or journal in a corner of the property. Ultimately, we need to return. We need to return to the mother that knows how to hold us. We need to return and we need to shut up, because learning to really listen to what we can co-create together will ultimately be our greatest opportunity to return to a balanced state. And hopefully, despite the fact that we've reached 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries, we've surpassed them, hopefully there is enough opportunity and time for us to rewrite our story that is rich with ritual and connection and initiation and reciprocity.
I couldn't have put it any better myself. That idea of reciprocity, rewriting our story, I think is so important. And that is such an awesome clip to be able to highlight that feeling, and the way that she just portrays that and says that in that whole, you can feel how much that means. And I think that echoes throughout all of us. So an important clip. And that was clip 9. So we've got one more clip to go in these best bits. And I couldn't not, because going through this episode, there were just so many clips that I wanted to pull out and put into this episode that I couldn't not go back to the wonderful Eric again for another clip from him, because I just was oozing clips basically of him with all of this just knowledge bombs and experience, and it was a jam-packed hour and a half. So I had to include a second clip from him to round out today's top 10. And this clip in particular, I think, is a really nice way of rounding out this whole lot, because while each clip in itself has been really thoughtful and had its own standalone thing, I think this clip really brings together the whole message that I'm trying to bring forth with this whole podcast and doing this type of thing and this whole movement. So I couldn't have said it any better myself. So here is Eric again for clip number 10. Remember, this was episode 23. Thanks, Eric.
One of the big learning curves for a designer is to realize that a good designer doesn't design what they want. They design a solution for what the client or the space needs.
Mm.
And sometimes that means putting your desires aside and becoming very humble and opening your eyes not to look through the lens of what you would like to see there or aspire to see there, but to read the landscape, to read the ecology, to read the soil. And until you can put your hand on the soil and just feel not its condition, but where it's going. Because remember, nothing in nature is static.
Mm-hmm.
A grassland is only experienced as a grassland for a certain period of time, and then it becomes scrub, and the scrub becomes woodland, the woodland becomes closed woodland, becomes rainforest, etc. And then it goes backwards because nature doesn't have a mind of progression or gain or loss. So when it's time and the trees die, they absorbed, and it's not de-evolution, it's just shifts, and it kills the whole forest off, and it reverts back to open woodland or then scrubland or to grassland, and it's all resource movement. So I think what we have in today's society is a capitalist machine, and that's natural. We build cities, we build houses, we pour money into it, we work for it. And you grow veggies to save you money or to produce wonderful food for you to eat. And there's like an ownership, give or take. Nature doesn't have that. So we've got to work with clients, in my mind, and with other designers in terms of education and lecturing, etc., to shift our consciousness from that to understanding that the land is moving. And if you want to grow vegetables, you've got to look at your site and say, okay, what kind of habitat or ecology have I got here? I've got open soils, it's bare, it's exposed, there's lots of wind, lots of sun. It's probably a bacterial-based soil ecology. Look at the weeds, it's grasses, it's primary colonizers. Oh, these ones move quickly. They're really rapid nutrient cyclists. Okay, so if I want to try plant a jaboticaba or a rainforest tree from Brazil or Australia, I've got to create an environment that's suitable for that. But what if I stop thinking about the tree as a product and I think, okay, this is where I'm starting at, bare soil. All right, let's plug into what nature's trying to do. And you start adding lemongrass, different grass species. You fill it up, densely planted with bioaccumulators that like high exposures and bacterial-based ecologies. And you harvest, if you're really clever, you make more edibles and herbs, and you feed your family out of it, and you cut and chop and drop, and you cut and chop and drop, and you let the seeds spread, and you go to town on it. And you just, with a little bit of patience, look and read, and you observe your soil opening up a little bit. So you let the weeds come in with a deep taproot. And by the time you see the weed, nature isn't just telling you what the ecology wants, it's doing it. By the time the seeds germinated and you see it, you're way behind the start point. That race has started. Nature is saying, the soil is compacted, it's dry, it's bacterial. This weed's going to come up, and I'm aerating, I'm opening it up, I'm bioaccumulating and drawing nutrients and carbon dioxide down into the soil. So plug into that, start planting more, start planting more, start planting more. And then in time, you can change the nature of your soils and increase your organic matter. And then you say, okay, it's 50-50 fungal bacteria. Maybe I'll introduce brassicas, and maybe I'll put a carrot in there, and then I'll play around with these. And slowly over, that's the magic of humans, is we move through multiple ecologies. We're not like a tree that is there and has to outlast for a long time. We can actually transition. We can be agents of change. And you can supercharge those processes, and you can slowly but surely, at the rate of your soil changes, you can change all the vegetation, because everything that's above is just an expression of what's happening underneath. So you shouldn't, in theory, make your garden based upon what's above. You should start under and emerge out of the soil, because that's a long-lasting investment of putting currency where it will stay, where chop and drop vegetation is cheap currency. That cents, what you put in the dollar is your paper notes, your big currency.
Yeah.
And so they feed off each other. And that's the thought. But to get there, we have to talk to designers and urban planners and architects and talk to them about creating environments that are capable of hosting succession and change. And that changes our mentality about what we see when we look at a parkland. When you look at the bush, you know, everyone thinks they're trees and that's the bush. That's the bush that's going through a dynamic change responding to humans. And the trees are trying to compete with the carbon dioxide and the gas and the methane and this and that. And that's fine. But we need to plug into those processes.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Eric. He rounded it out perfectly. As I said, that's the essence of the message here, is reading the land, working with and observing the perfect blueprint of nature. Because who are we to say that we can do this better when there is a perfect blueprint? It's observing, it's working with, it's being part of nature. And that's what's important to me. And that's what's important to all of these people that you've seen today in these clips. So I want to give a huge heartfelt thank you to everyone who has listened and commented, been a part of this podcast, to the guests. Obviously, to be supporting this show in the first year is really important to me. So I couldn't have done it without all of you in such a special way. Sounds crazy just thinking like, you know, this is the first year, it's the first of many. I want to continue this. It's like, I feel like I'm doing a little acceptance speech, but I really want to just kind of acknowledge that it's an important thing for me to have hit 50 episodes and the impact that it's made. There, by all means, every single conversation had its highlights and really stuck with me in a certain way, but to pick 10 was just so difficult. So please, you know, go and look at all of the other conversations that you feel so obliged to go and listen to. There's some perfect people out there doing some wonderful things. So thank you again to everybody. I couldn't say it enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But that's not it. We're going again next year. You'll see me after a short break, you know, for the rest of this year, and we'll be back January 1st. I've got a whole bunch of special episodes lined up for the second year. But that's it. I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, we'll see you again next year for round 2. Here we go. Thank you and bye for now.